One of the things that we know about the boarding school and about the intergenerational trauma that's been handed down from generation to generation, many of the issues that our youth are currently dealing with has direct ties to the consequences of the boarding school era. And we call that no more fallen feathers, would be an Indian way of saying no child left behind. What that means is, like in the ceremonies, they say an eagle feather can't fall to the ground. And what we're saying is we don't want any of our children no more, not the young people. Everyone is important. Everyone is like gold. So we put together what we feel is the latest knowledge that we know about how to help our youth build their character, how to stop suicides, how to stop the violence, and how to get them connected back into the community. Remembering what gave us the original knowledge was the earth, that there's these principal laws and values from both the seen world and the unseen world. And this was the source of our culture. Long time ago, we taught this culture to our youth. But nowadays, because the boarding school took so much of it away, is we're not teaching them that anymore. And so what we're saying here is for us to remember, as a reminder, when we had the spirituality, the ceremonies, the teachings, the cultural values, the language, when they were little boys, we taught them all these things. We knew about the cycle of life. In the same way with the young girls, we taught them. And then as the cycle of life continued, then our women and our men went on to become elders. And then these elders, that's who we went to. If we needed to know something about the teachings, about the spirituality, about the ceremonies, about cultural values, and what those teachings were, always we went to the elders for that. And so, because of the boarding school, then generation after generation, that those ancestors before, we are carrying that hurt inside of ourselves, and today we are now calling this intergenerational trauma. And this trauma, when it happens, it doesn't surface right away. It stays inside of ourselves, maybe 3 or 4 generations, and then 3 or 4 generations later, then it surfaces. And what we now know with the research that Maria Braveheart done and Dr. Duran, what they did is they started to teach us about this intergenerational trauma, and we're now able to connect that this trauma, if we don't heal from it, then what we know is the sexual abuse will continue. If we heal from the trauma, that will stop. We know it's connected to suicides. We know it's connected to relationship issues. It's behind alcoholism. And what we see in our communities now, as a result of that, is in our communities there's a lot of damage and a lot of hurt. We're having adults hurting children. And when you're a little child and you're hurt, you carry that scar as you grow up. And if you are hurt more, then you carry those scars. So you can grow up with low self-esteem, feelings of not being worthy, not seeing any hope, thinking maybe you're dumb, thinking maybe you're stupid, and then you go around your life thinking that. So what we have found is that when somebody is hurt, that hurt people, we'll turn around and then we hurt people. And so this is what we're passing down generation to generation, that we call the descendants of the boarding schools. So this is intergenerationally being carried down from one generation to the next. Now the system is still in place. It's always the big trees that teach the little trees. So wouldn't it make sense if the big trees have alcoholism or sexual abuse and violence and we're hurting people, does it make sense that the little trees are just going to end up being taught by the big trees. And then those little trees, they will grow. Even like today, for example, we see a lot of our young Native people, some of them, they're going off to prison. I'm talking about teenagers, young people. They're going off to prison. And of course, many of our young people, they're going off into treatment for alcohol, for drugs, for meth, for prescription drugs, for many, many reasons. Too many of our people, young ones, they're ending up in the court system. And when you get in that court system, then it's even harder, you see, to get out of it. And unfortunately, too many of our young people are going to heaven. And what that means is car accidents, teen suicides. And so we have this intergenerational trauma is being carried out in this manner, you see, with our youth. There was a time when we knew a lot about the cycle of life. And so the cycle of life is baby, youth, adult, and elder. And we knew a lot about that cycle of life. In fact, we knew so much about it that around the cycle of life, there's 8 things that a human being has to experience for it to grow up to be a normal, happy, healthy person. Each of these 8 things, as you grow up, it turns into a pattern of thought. And the human being runs its entire life off of 8 patterns of thought. So if you grow up and one of your patterns is to be a negative thinker, then you'll be a negative thinker in every area of your life. So these are the traditional teachings about what it was that we taught young children, young boys, young girls as they grow up. We knew how to give them these teachings in that. So in this cycle of life. Actually, in the cycle of life today, as we say, the cycle of life is broken for this reason. A long time ago, we knew that when you come around the cycle of life, you conducted that in a 4-year cycle. 1 year like spring, 1 like summer, 1 like fall, 1 like winter. So when you were born, then the first 4 years, there was a certain thing you're supposed to be taught. And then we taught them that in the old days. Then when you got up from 4 years old to 7 or 8, then there were other teachings that we were supposed to give. And then when you got 8 to 12, then we gave them more teachings. Then of course the next circle was the puberty time. And so there were teachings there that we gave to the young people when they come of age, or the puberty ceremonies. All the way around the cycle of life, we knew this. So what's happened to us is the human being, the way the Creator designed us, is still designed to be wanting us certain teachings as we grow up. So the human being, it says, during the first 4 years, it says, teach me this. And what's happening is we're not teaching them. Then the next 4 years, it's saying, teach me this, except we're not giving them those teachings. Then it says, teach me this. This is by 12 years old. There's supposed to be teachings that we give them. And of course, when we come into the teenage years, teach me this, and we don't teach them. And so what you hear us say is, about the youth, we say, oh, they have no identity. They don't even know who they are. No identity forms. And that's true. No identity forms because we haven't given them the teachings for that identity. And that's supposed to happen, you see, during those teenage years. So if you could imagine that you're walking down this road of life, or the red road, and like how the universe is created, there's always 2 paths that you can go. And so as you walk down this path, there's one side's the dark side and another side's the light side. So let's say the light side is where you have your culture identity. This is what we taught a long time ago. But now because of the boarding school, then what happens is there's another side. That's the side where you have no identity. You don't know who you are. And so what happens then is on that identity side, there's little groups, there's little things of influence is there. And of course, it's the same as the true on the white side. There's little groups that form. And these are, in the old days, these were the clans or the warrior societies. So what we're seeing now is that as our young people come up to the age of 12 or come up to their puberty, on that side, that's where the gangs are. That's where the drugs is, and that's where the alcohol is. And you have no identity. It's very easy to be persuaded to go over, you see, to that side. But on the light side, this is where the teachings are. This is where the ceremonies, this is where the culture. This is where we taught them. We prepared them, you see, for this way. So as you come down this road of life, it's always about yes or no. Which side, you see, are you going to go to? The cultural identity side? If you do, there's certain consequences that the natural law puts in your life. You do certain things that's in harmony with the earth, in harmony with the culture, then there's consequences and results. But if you go on the other side, where there is no identity, and you go to the place of gangs, and you go to the place of school dropouts, and those other things that you can do, there's consequences there too, and they play out in our life. So does it make sense that what we want to do is we want to take our young people, even before teenage years, when they're young like that, and we want them to grow on this road. And so the road we want them to grow on is to come to that cultural identity side, so they experience that consequences and they grow up to be healthy men and healthy women. So the programs that we have designed for the Wellbriety movement for youth, every one of them is important. We should not forget any youth. Everyone is like gold. No more fallen feathers, we say. Because they're a part of this Wellbriety movement too, which means to be have a sober lifestyle, to be balanced emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually, that we teach them very young to connect to those principle laws and values, and that they're walking, you see, that red road. So these are the trainings that we have. The first training is called Mending Broken Hearts. This is for youth. This training is we trained facilitators who are working with youth groups. Could be boys clubs, girls clubs, could be treatment centers, it could be in school systems. But in this training is what we show them is how to help the youth grieve, how to help them experience loss. Because our youth experience a lot of suicides of their friends or car accidents, and we need to know how to grieve, how to do that loss. The second training we have for them is something called the meaning and purpose to life. What happens in this training is we have a book and a workshop that we teach, and it has the 12 teachings that help the youth to find their purpose and meaning to life. And then for those that might be in treatment or coming out of the prison system or the jail system or the school system, we have some optional programs that they can take there. One is called Daughters of Traditions. That program is for 8 to 12-year-olds, and then also for the teenage girls. There's the Sons of Traditions. So this is where the culture, it's a strong, strong emphasis on learning the culture. It has elders tied to it. And then for those that are coming out of treatment, we made a Medicine Wheel 12 Steps for Youth. The Medicine Wheel 12 Steps for Youth is a recovery program, but it's based on storytelling. And so it helps them to find themselves. It helps to build good character. And then the fourth program is called Returning to the Circle. This is where you form the talking circle, a support circle, so that when they have problems, they can come share those problems, and it's very safe. And it's a way for them to start to share and to continue the processing the grief. You can check the website for the further details that goes on for this training, because it's very important, as we said earlier, that the disconnect sometimes between the youth and the adults. We're not talking. Our children are not talking to us. And so they have those secrets. And as we said, those secrets, maybe they were abused, or maybe they were beat up, or maybe there was bullying going on. or the other things that problems that the youth have that the adults may not even know that's going on. Those generate hurts, and those hurts, they grow. And as they grow, then pretty soon this is where they start to keep the secrets. And those secrets, what happens is as you grow up, then you carry those secrets. You might have those secrets from your friends or your parents or grandparents or whoever it is that you're living with. And so the Mending Broken Hearts for Youth, it helps the youth to find, you know something, you're not alone. There is help, and you can get that help. You can get your relief, and then you can come and continue to go through the training until you get to the returning to the circle training. So you can become a healthy, powerful, educated Native youth. And the name of that program is called the Mending Broken Hearts for Youth. So when we take a look at the youth that's in the forest, whatever is going on in the forest, the youth need to go into healing. Some of this healing is from intergenerational trauma. And so how these 4 trainings would apply is as they start to go through that grieving process for Mending Broken Hearts for Youth, here's where they get rid of their shame, get rid of their anger, get rid of guilt, if they've done something wrong, bad feelings, and they can start to talk to one another. Then in the training for the meaning and purpose to life is where they start to set goals, and they start to learn the teachings, the 12 teachings for finding the meaning and purpose to life. And then, of course, the daughter and sons of traditions. It helps them to continue to grow in a culture. This is the way we taught them a long time ago. We spend time with them, we show them the teachings, and then finally returning to the circle. So they have that support group. So as the youth go through this healing, in addition to what's going on in the community, so you start to see them growing and healing and healthy and in recovery and getting an education and going to school and doing the things that they want. And everyone is important, no matter what they've done, no matter what family they come from. They're important. No more fallen feathers. We can't let one of the youth, you see, fall to the ground, because they're our future. They're our leaders. They're the ones that we really need to pay attention to. So in the Purpose to Life training, this is where they will answer 3 questions. One is, who am I? One is, where am I going? And one is, why am I? This is very, very important in the teenage years, that they are able to answer those 3 questions. So as they go around the cycle of life, then the teachings come back. And when you have those teachings and you're solid in that, then you don't have to drink. You don't have to hide nothing. You like who you are. You feel worthy, you see, to go ahead and to do those things. It's when we come back to those teachings that we know we are able to answer those questions. Who am I? Where am I? And where am I going? And so that are the teachings that's taught into that cycle of life. The teachings and the meaning to life that we used to teach to the young people a long time ago. And I'll just close with this. And there's no exception to this. Every human being, it doesn't matter where you're born, who you're born to, who you are with, just like every plant has a purpose. Every plant has a meaning. Every plant has a medicine, just like us. So we have certain goals that we set. Maybe one of our goals is to graduate from high school. That might be a goal. Or maybe we get to the age where my goal is, I got to get me a job so I can get some money and I can earn things. Or maybe the goal is, I'm going to go to college. I'm going to graduate from college. I'm going to be a nurse. I'm going to be a teacher, or whatever that goal is. So we need to realize this, is that every human being is born with a greater purpose, overall greater purpose. And that purpose is to serve the Creator and help others. And so no matter what tribe you're from, multiple tribes you're from, if you're part Indian, part white, part two different tribes, part black, part Indian, whatever that is, you got to know you are born for a purpose. There's a reason the Creator give you the talents and the skills that you have, and that you are actually here to help the people. You are here to serve the Creator. Trauma, when it happens, it doesn't surface right away. It stays inside of ourselves, maybe 3 or 4 generations, and then 3 or 4 generations later, then it surfaces. And what we now know with the research that Maria Braveheart done and Dr. Duran, what they did is they started to teach us about this intergenerational trauma, and we're now able to connect that this trauma, if we don't heal from it, then what we know is the sexual abuse will continue. If we heal from the trauma, that will stop. We know it's connected to suicides. We know it's connected to relationship issues. It's behind saying is we don't want any of our children no more, not the young people. Everyone is important. Everyone is like gold. So we put together what we feel is the latest knowledge that we know about how to help our youth build their character, how to stop suicides, how to stop the violence, and how to get them connected back into the community. Remembering what gave us the original knowledge was the earth, that there's these principal laws and values from both the seen world. One of the things that we know about the boarding school and about the intergenerational trauma that's been handed down from generation to generation, many of the issues that our youth are currently dealing with has direct ties to the consequences of the boarding school era. And we call that no more fallen feathers, would be an Indian way of saying no child left behind. What that means is, like in the ceremonies, they say an eagle feather can't fall to the ground in what we're in the unseen world. And this was the source of our culture. Long time ago, we taught this culture to our youth. But nowadays, because the boarding school took so much of it away, is we're not teaching them that anymore. And so what we're saying here is for us to remember, as a reminder, when we had the spirituality, the ceremonies, the teachings, the cultural values, the language, when they were little boys, we taught them all these things. We knew about the cycle of life. In the same way with the young girls, we taught them. And then as the cycle of life continued, then our women and our men went on to become elders. And then these elders, that's who we went to. If we needed to know something about the teachings, about the spirituality, about the ceremonies, about cultural values, and what those teachings were, always we went to the elders for that. And so, because of the boarding school, then generation after generation, that those ancestors before, we are carrying that hurt inside of ourselves, and today we are now calling this intergenerational trauma. And this